7 seconds till showtime.
Sorry, I'm late, man.
Bart, how's your little girl? Did you take her?
She's
You took her to the dentist?
Yeah, she just got braces, and so it was hurting her, and she wasn't sure. Like, my kids have had braces, they're a little tight when they start, and I don't know how much. It may have been less about the braces hurting and more about being heard, because
Yeah.
it was like I haven't been around this week, and so I was like, all right, just taking the time to go, let's go make sure they're okay was, I think, more important than the pain. So
She just wants to make sure her daddy is in her corner, right?
yes, 100%. Yes, I think so. Which I love doing that. So I appreciate you being gracious enough to switch the times, because I thought I could cram it in there, but the dentist wasn't as quick as I was.
My dentist for 30 years has been my next door neighbor. And so it's
Oh, no way.
it's been very convenient. I've been in that chair many times. When he sees me coming, he sings his favorite hymn, which is Crown Bill with Many Crowns.
He loves his neighbor.
Guess what I'm doing?
I'm going to guess inhaling and exhaling.
Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Did some wise people, when you were growing up, say to you, you need to just stand back and exhale because you're uptight
Yeah.
about something? And evidently, this whole project started when you were, going through the pandemic and saying, okay, let's stand back a little bit and try to get a realistic picture on it. Whenever you feel afraid, the next time
Yeah.
you find yourself scared, just remember that fear has no power here. It has no control because no chain can hold what's already free. So hold on to Jesus and breathe. Inhale. And you sneaky little guy, you came in there with that piano real quiet and it started building. That's a beautiful intro to this project.
You know what, Bill? What's so cool about that is when we the album's taken a little over 2 years, and we were almost finished with it before the pandemic, and the album was going to be called Spaceman, and the whole thing was just that we're not of this world, and when the pandemic hit, we intentionally slowed everything down just to have something to do every day, and the more we went into this pandemic, the more we realized the songs that we had already written still have a place, and we'll put them out at some point. But man, how do you not write songs through this just with
Absolutely.
what we're going through and the amount of time we have? And so we kind of started over, ended up writing 40 something songs. And in that, the whole time kept saying, man, I just want people, well, and you might get this like in April, May, I kind of I kind of say it's like when the Titanic started going down, every musician jumped in a lifeboat called YouTube and social media and just started hitting us from every angle with the most emotional songs you could possibly hear, which is great. But after a while, I'm like, I feel like I'm watching The Notebook or some really sad movie 11 times a day. And I was like, man, it's so heavy. And so we were kind of like, man, I just want to be able to laugh. And so we put out a song back then from the album. The label let us put out early, called Hurry Up and Wait, and made this corny video of me being stuck in a cabin and just trying to lighten the mood a little bit. And throughout the record, we kept saying, man, I still believe in making full albums instead of just singles. And if there's any chance that for 40 something minutes, people can just set their issues aside and just take a deep breath and breathe, and then this would be worth it. And so, yeah, and that first song, which was so cool, was my problem is, and I'm sure you're similar. If I hear music or hear a lyric idea, I can't walk away from it. I'll start writing I'll always, I can't just go, later, I just got to try. And so our guitar player, Mike, he kept sending me ideas when the album was finished, and I kind of chewed him out like, stop it. I've got things to do. I can't walk away from this. And one of those he sent me was that piano part in the beginning. He just set his iPhone on top of the piano, turned the voice recorder on, and started playing. He goes, man, this is really pretty. he doesn't play piano, so it's not like in perfect time or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But and so when he sent it, I was like, man, not now. We're done. And so I didn't listen to it. And about a few weeks later, I felt bad that I was kind of short with him. And so I was driving home from Texas, and I listened to it and wrote those lyrics immediately behind the wheel. Like I had to pull over and write them down. And I loved that it was like a minute long. And so Brown Bannister and Ted T were a couple of the producers, and I called them and said, hey, I want to use Mike's iPhone voice memo. I don't want to change anything about the piano. So that's why there's like a bump on the mic, and he starts counting. And I said, and then I want to make the back half this beautiful cinematic thing and not tell Mike. It was a surprise to him. And so we did the whole thing, and I was like, oh, it's like it should be in a movie. It's so pretty. And I just thought that was the perfect way to start this message and this album. We sent it to him. We were so excited. All the other guys did the background vocals and just left Mike out. I think we texted him this. We texted him a song. We're like, look, surprise. He was like, oh, that's cool. We're like, what? You jerk, it's going off the record. I said, we need a bigger emotion than that. He was like, no, I was with my kids at the doctor. I'm so sorry. But yeah, it was cool. I think it summed up everything we were wanting to say in that short amount of time, just to kick off where the album goes from there.
You know, one of the great things about what you do is you are still idea driven. Gloria and I have always been idea driven. Music is it's just a wrapper it comes in, and you try to find the right package for the idea that can make it work. And in your notes, you mentioned on the song "Blessed" that you remembered Russ Taff and how he would do something like that. And secondly, Black Church. I don't think any writer can get away totally from Black Church one way or the other. You come back to those rhythm feels; they are so good. And your song "Blessed," especially during this year, to simply say, we have choices of how we're going to face this whole thing, grateful or ungrateful. And
100%. I grew up in a little Baptist church and my whole life, and I think I would get stuck in the weeds of making mistakes and not letting myself pass that, which led to shame and guilt and whatever. And somewhere along the way, just enough wise people in my life, especially my grandmother, she was like, if God's in control, then how is it technically a mistake? Not that it doesn't make it right or wrong or whatever. It's just, it's not like it's surprising God. It's not like he's like, oh man, didn't see that coming. You got me. And then she used to always say, she was like, and just remember, no matter what it is, it's still one step closer to home. And I was like, and I've like lived by that. And she's like, you may stumble, you may fall flat in your face, you may run a full sprint, but either way, it's the right direction. You're one step closer. And so when, that was one that we wrote right before the pandemic. And in fact, our first single, this is how long the album's taken. Our first single was Almost Home, which will be a year and a half old from when we released it, thinking the album was about to come out, and then we drug it out. And so Blessed was originally, speaking of trying to do the kind of the Black gospel, Black church thing, I tried to write it like an old hymn and was going to get this kind of this, like a Blind Boys of Alabama, somebody to kind of sing it, just a real short thing right before it goes to Almost Home. And just, Russ did Steal Away on his Russ Taff years ago. And I always loved that short 30-second thing with just a dobro and or slide guitar and him. So that's where it started. And then when everything got delayed, I found it and I was like, man, this would be a cool hymn. And I was like, wait, what are we doing? Like, this is a song. And so we just went for it. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if you're like this, but there's sometimes people tell me that certain things don't work, and that makes me want to prove that they can work. And for years, it's been like, if you put a gospel choir on a single, it's a radio killer. They won't play it. And I'm like, and one of my favorite things on the planet is gospel choir.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to get it forever. And finally I was like, man, forget it. Just don't let it be a single or whatever. This is going to this song. And of course they love it. And it's unbelievable. We had over 160 tracks of choir when we were done. We kept doing it just because we loved it. We didn't use it, but they were finally like, hey, we got to go home at some point. We're like, sorry. We just want to keep hearing them singing.
Yeah. You mentioned Texas. You're going back home to Texas. Texas is your home, right? Uh,
Yeah, I live in Nashville or
yeah,
Franklin
yeah,
now, but
yeah.
Greenville, Texas, where I was born and raised.
Okay. Is that in West Texas?
It's 48 miles northeast of Dallas. Right, like if you between Little Rock, Texarkana, and Dallas, Greenville's right in there. Yeah, it's we're just on the curtain of East Texas, is what they say.
Okay. Well, you know what? There's a lot of historical stuff that happened close to Greenville. How close are you to Jacksonville, Texas?
Jacksonville's still probably a couple of hours.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
East Texas was the home of VO Stamps,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
the old publisher that started the Stamps Baxter Music Company, published such great songs as Just a Little Talk with Jesus and Where Could I Go? But now where could I go but to the Lord? You're talking to the historian now,
Yeah.
of our kind of music. And it's so much fun for me living as long as I have lived to watch all you young guys come along and these ideas keep surfacing, but they surface, in a new package. And it's beautiful. The project is produced so well, and the tracking is so.
Yeah, we're really proud of how well it sounds sonically.
It sounds.
Yeah.
The stuff sounds
Yeah.
great.
The blessing and the curse for us, I guess, was that we about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we bought this log cabin in the middle of nowhere, and our dream has always been to have our own studio. And so we started that process and thought, man, we finally arrived, realizing that when you're not renting the place and they don't kick you out at midnight, albums take way longer to make because you just spend all your time, let's revisit. So it was fun, but I'm like, we got to be a little more efficient than we were in this last record. But it was, yeah, so when it sonically, man, just we went back to it over and over. Well, the producers did. I mean, I was there watching, but they were the ones that were sticklers about, man, we want this to be the best sounding thing you guys have done. And it's funny because I'm not one to really brag on like my singing or writing, but I'll brag on the stuff the other guys do. They're playing sonically everything because, not to sound arrogant, but I didn't have anything to do with it. So as a fan, I'm really proud of how it turned out.
Yeah, I see that Brown Bannister was one of your producers. Is he one of the sweetest human beings that God ever put on earth?
Yeah, Brown is one of my favorite human beings on the planet, and he's been like a father figure. I think we've done 9 albums together over the years, which we couldn't believe it's been that many with my hymns records and Christmas albums and stuff. And he wasn't supposed to be on this one. We got to a point early on, man, after the movie came out and there was a lot of weird, unexpected kind of success with that. We hit a point to where I think everybody around me knew it but me, but like I'm good at lamenting and writing about things that I struggle with. And we hit a season to where the way my manager Brickle put it, man, everything's good for you. Like, it's, your family's healthy and it's like, maybe it feels like you're trying to manufacture suffering or whatever. And it did kind of feel like when I was trying to write songs, like I was looking for something. And so I kind of had a moment to where I was like, I just didn't want to write songs. And we were in the middle of trying to finish this album. And it got to where I think our label president was like, man, you're writing with so many guys who are, these days you're a songwriter and a producer. And he goes, maybe whoever you're writing with, let them kind of catch the vision and finish the song. And so at one point we were working with 8 or 9 different producers, and it was awful. I ended up being the guy, kind of an executive producer, where I had to line them up with schedules and stuff. And that's what I'm terrible at. So I was doing a terrible disservice to them, and just had a moment where I was like, man, I don't think I can do this anymore. And I reached out to Brown, who's working at Lipscomb. If he's producing anything, it's his daughter Ellie, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I just vented. It's like, Brown, man, I'm dying on the vine. I need help to land this thing. And he was like, Bart, he goes, you guys are probably the only ones that I would 100% stop everything and do it. And so we got him back in the studio, and he kind of just steered the whole thing and curated it, whatever you're gonna call it. And I'm telling you, life is better when Brown's in the room. And he's the guy he's never looking for an angle to be a writer on a song. In fact, I'll have to give him credit for a song and he won't take it. He's more the guy that sits there, and if the idea is not right, instead of saying maybe say it this way, he's like, I don't think we've hit it yet. You guys try again. And he makes you believe that you can conquer the world. And you just I'm telling you, you're just a better person being around him, and you know that.
Somebody said the other day, "What are you doing today, these days, Bill?" And I said, "I I am trying to make other people look better. And when you
Mm,
do that, you're never out of a job." Brown Bannister is a person who has always tried to make other
yep.
folks look better. I love that man, and if you see him, you see him. Make sure you pass that on to him. You called me one time and said, "Hey, Bill, I want you to listen. We're doing sound check, and my son is singing your song because he lives." That was so sweet of you to call. Is this the same son, Wesley?
Yep, that's Sam Wesley. That's his same son. And yeah, that was the first he when we moved here, he was 12 years old. He's 19 now.
Yeah.
And that's a hard time to move, and left all his friends. And so we decided to let him take guitar lessons, and his guitar became his best friend. And
Uh,
I never heard him sing, and he wouldn't let me hear him sing until he was about 15. I would hear him every once in his room, and I would try to slide my phone under the door to record it. He would never let me.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden on Instagram, I'm getting in bed at night, and my wife's looking at the phone, and I hear this "because he lives," and it's like, I was like, "That's amazing. Who is that?" And she said, "This is your son." And I started sobbing, like like still. And I don't know if you've been this way, but it's like when your kids, your grandkids, whatever,
Mm.
they do something, man, it hits me. Like I'm just, yeah, that's why I can't watch a movie like The Notebook. I'd cry the whole time because it gets me. But yeah, and I just couldn't believe it. And so for Christmas that year, I got a good friend of mine named Ben Shive, a producer, and said, "Man, I want you to finish a song with him. Like I want him to experience the arrangements and everything, but also was like, but I want you to let him steer it. Like even if he does it wrong, just let him work it out, and I'll pay you or whatever." And that was the Christmas gift. And he came up with this version of "Because He Lives" that, I'm not kidding, I know I sound like a proud dad. It's one of my favorite versions I've ever heard.
It's
It's
good.
beautiful.
It's good to hear you be that proud.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so on this album, I just told him, I said, "Man, your voice is beautiful. You have an old soul about you." And I said, and songwriting, I think God gives you a gift to sing. And I said, songwriting, it's definitely a gift, but it's also like a muscle that the more practice you get, the better you are. And just and studying people and how they say it. And that's, I think, the crime of no longer having liner notes is that was like half of my research growing up was reading lyrics. Now I got to dig them up on Google. But anyway, and so he came to me and said, "Hey," he goes, "I want you to hear something. I was writing with two guys, and we heard that American Idol was looking for a song, and it's one of these kind of side companies that'll pay you like a flat, like $200 or $300, thinking, oh, I got it," and then they'll put it out there and make all the money. And he played me that chorus on our way on the album, and I was like, "Oh, buddy," I was like, "This is legitimately good." And then so I played it for Jeff Mosley, our label president, and he goes, "Man," he goes, "Why, instead of $300 or whatever it was, why don't you? This is a MercyMe song. Let him actually make some money." And I was like, "All right, well, this is the weird dad conversation of, 'Hey, Sam, your song's great. Daddy wants it.'" Because I was like, that's such an odd conversation to have.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? An old president friend of mine, Dr. Reardon, the president of Anderson University, I was on that board for many years, told me one time, "It's not going to be easy being your son." And I will pass that on to you. It's not going to be easy for him to be your son,
Yeah.
Bart. And
Yeah.
you have handled it, as far as I'm concerned, very, very beautifully. You're very proud of it. And by the way, the kid does have a great voice. And you know me,
Yeah,
and
he does.
you know me and vocals. I love great singers.
I am right there with you, man. It is beautiful. And what's crazy is, so originally it was a song we were going to do. And it was like, man, just get credit as a songwriter. And, you just graduated high school, and, you could use the money or whatever. And so he was finally like, "Okay, Well, then when I went into, I helped him finish out the verses, and I was going to sing a demo, and my voice was shot. And so he was there. So I sang the first half. I was like, I can't go any further. And so I was like, Sam, just sing the second verse. Just, it's enough to show the label. Well, and so he did it. And so I played it for the band and the label, and they were both like, we don't need to change. We need to leave Sam in there. And they were like, and because I would have never suggested it to the guys, and just don't want to be that guy, but just in tears, like, are you serious? And Jeff was like, yeah, this is and not only is a great story, but it's really good. And so and it saved my tail big time, because instead of going, hey, Daddy's taking your song, I went to him and said, hey, now you're featured on it. And, of course he was on cloud nine and so excited. And yes, I'm probably one of the proudest moments of my career and as a father.
One of the great things about your writing is you have ideas. You have stuff that we can talk about. On your song Yesterday, I don't know how many times I have talked to friends of mine who have gone through stuff, and I cleaned that up a little bit, but have gone through some real stuff. I said, you have got to get it in your rear view mirror. Get it in the past. Gloria said it this way: I give up the bitterness and hate and blaming men and fate for all my discontent. The guilt and pain I empty from my cup so God can fill it up with peace and sweet content. I will go on. The past I leave behind me. The Apostle Paul gives us encouragement at that point to say, get it in the past. We've all messed up. It's been bad. And you have touched on that several times in this project. And God bless you. I mean, we need vertical worship, where we worship God and tell him he is great and we do trust him. We also need horizontal worship that says, okay, how then shall we live? We've been
100%.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it. You just helped me and how I'm going to explain it now, because there's this massive vertical worship movement that's taking place, like I've never seen in my time.
Yeah, it's great.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
and people ask, like, I've been asked, like, because I feel like I'm a, whether it's a worship leader or whatever, but I absolutely feel like I've always been writing worship music. But what a great way to describe that is that I feel like I'm writing horizontal worship. I love the challenge of trying to find a clever way to say something, to speak truth, and to say it, in just a different way. And so, like, that song's a great example. And just so it's I've always heard, like, preachers, the thing they preach the hardest about is probably the thing they struggle with the most. And so for me, man, I struggle with my past and fear. That's the things that I wrestle with a lot, and somehow a lot of us, we treat our past like we're almost like an abusive relationship. We just keep going back to it. And so yesterday I was talking to my kids one day about some Disney Channel kid who's probably in his 50s now. And I thought he was still a teenager. My kids were like, Dad, that guy's so old. He was so yesterday. And they kept saying it. And I just thought, okay, that's a pretty great phrase of so yesterday. And just another way to kind of address the things that I deal with daily.
My dear departed friend, Vestal Goodman with the big hair.
Oh, yes.
Vestal used to always say, Bill, we are people of faith. We are not people of fear. She'd say, get that fear in the past. And, and from time to time when I'm dealing with my own fears, the ghost of Vestal comes in this very room I'm talking to you from. All of those old characters were here, and there'd be times when she prayed, she could bring heaven and earth together and pray the devil away and pray the fear of the past.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. As a kid in our church, psychology was way over here and theology was way over here, And
Right.
You said you grew up in a little Baptist church in Texas. In our church, when we were kids, we went to the altar, up to a public altar. And that was supposed to alter our lives forever. And we didn't didn't need, didn't need anything else. But it's so good today, in this day and time, to hear a David Jeremiah preach on depression and use a lot of wonderful scriptures, but also be very, very kind to the science community, and the psychology community who are dealing with also the same issues. And I think you have done such a healthy approach, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm any, if I'm any a judge, to say, hey, theology is our friend, and good psychology is also our friend, and when the two come together, good psychology is also good theology. An example is
Yeah.
why you keep looking right behind you, keep throwing your head back and forth. How about eyes straight ahead, because ain't nothing back there anymore. That's good theology, that's good science. Don't act like you've forgotten something, like you've done left a friend. The only friend you need is the one who don't care where you've been. Jesus said, I'll cast your sins in the sea of forgetfulness. The problem with us, we keep going fishing again in the past. And you say,
So true.
get out of that pond, man. And then you get your
Yep.
your whiplash hook. You're a clever little writer, you rascal.
Yeah, man. It's just trying to, I mean, I don't know who told me it, but it was just like, when it comes down to, I've talked to friends that write country music and pop music, and I said, hey, in fact, a guy named Ryan Tedder, who's the lead singer of a band called One Republic, huge pop band.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest songwriters in the world right now. And our paths crossed. And so like that song, So Yesterday, I remember talking to him. He kind of helped finish that song with melodies and stuff. And I told him one day, I said, hey, I just want you to know, I know Christian music is not as big, but it's way harder to write this than pop music, because we got so many rules to play by, and you want to try to speak truth and not sound too corny doing it, and then still feel musically relevant. I said, and I said, you guys can write about whatever and not even make up, just use made up words, and it works. And he was like, hey, I'm with you. He goes, it's too hard to do that. And that was one of those conversations. Whiplash was like, I mean, we're really trying to find new ways to tell an old story and a relevant story. And so, yeah, it's like, I'm always looking for something that's, clever is the best word. I love the challenge of just trying to find a new way to say things. And I love this. Anybody that actually stops to hear the lyrics, like this is my favorite podcast ever, because most time it's like, where did I Can Only Imagine come from? What's your favorite color? And the fact that you're going through these lyrics is awesome.
I think Solomon is credited with, there is nothing new under the sun. And when it comes to songwriting, there's nothing new under the sun.
True.
But we're like cooks in a kitchen. We're dealing basically with the same ingredients: chicken, beef, pork, the flavors, and all this stuff. But when you can serve it up in a different way, for instance, the Yesterday thing. When I was a kid, we had a song evangelist who sang a song called God Took Away My Yesterdays and Left Me Free from Sin. And in that land of glory, he'll never mention them. In a land far away, they'll always stay in a deep sea called forget. I didn't write this so I can brag it on. Okay. God took away my yesterdays, the moment that we met. Is that a great little idea? Now, musically, obviously, it's dated. It's dated.
Yeah.
And so you say, and I know that, I know you have to say this, Matt. You say, okay, now how can I say this in a new, fresh music way of God taking away my yesterdays, the moment that we met, and in that land of glory, he'll never even bring them up to us. God is much more kind than we are to ourselves. I'm convinced.
No question, man. That you talk about that, God's much more kind at loving us. And that's, the song "Let Yourself Be Loved," which might be one of my favorites on the album.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's got that kind of Motown feel or whatever. But you know what's crazy is that all came out of years ago. I think Ellen DeGeneres was doing like the Oscars or something like that, and I tweeted, "She's really funny," and I said, when we did the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, she was a guest or whatever, and I said, and she was really kind to me. That's all I said. And I got lambasted by our fans about how I'm taking a stance and I'm for same-sex marriage, all this stuff. And I was like, whoa. And normally I don't respond, but it really upset me. And so I remember writing a big response like, one, you need to find a bigger cross to die on. And then I was like, man, I kind of wrote it to Ellen saying, Ellen, if you're never going to see this, but if you do, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. I think there's a reason why he said, if you love me, you got to love the church, because sometimes the church is so hard to love. Yeah. But I was like, I'm sorry if you ever see this, and just talk about it being about love. And I said, and this is true, I said, man, it says, love your neighbor as yourself. And I used to think that we were terrible at that. Like, we just don't understand what that means. But then that seemed to contradict the fact that if Christ is in me, then I think I am capable of doing what it commands us to do. And so then I said, then something switched, and I realized we're actually good at it. In fact, we're incredibly good at it. The problem is we don't love ourselves.
You're exactly right.
It's like we are so good at loving a neighbor like ourselves that's what's damaging, because the problem is we've never cared for ourselves that much. And so it reflects. And so the idea of let yourself be loved, see yourself as Jesus does, is probably the most important message on the album for me. And yeah, and it's like, and so I got it backwards. I just thought, man, we don't do it well. And it's like, nope, that's not true, because I can do all things through Christ. So for that to line up, because the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells in me, I can do it all. The issue is I'm not a big fan of myself. And so that is how I treat my neighbor. And so until we figure that out, what are we doing? Like, you got to be able to love yourself. You got to be able to allow the same grace that came from the cross to be for you like it is everybody else.
In 1980, we wrote a song that was really hard for men to understand. And it would just, I am loved, I can risk loving you, for the one who knows me best loves me most. And you know me, I'm Barnum and Bailey. I was trying to sell the idea. Sing it with us. I am loved. Women would sing it, but men would go, I don't really feel good with that. Thank God that was 80, so this would be 40 years later. I think we have moved at that point. They're willing to admit that I need to be comfortable with loving myself. Just let yourself be loved. See yourself as Jesus does. Let yourself be loved, and hear him say that you are enough. I'll never forget at Whitney Houston's funeral, Kevin Costner said, she never thought she was good enough. She was good enough. And you can Google it. It's a wonderful speech. At the end, he says, I guess she's now found out she's good enough.
Yeah.
We go through life thinking, we're not good enough. We're not good enough. What a great theme and what a great song. This whole project is so sound theologically and psychologically.
Thank you.
We've already gone beyond our time limits. There's so many things I want to talk.
I hear you.
I wanted to talk to you some about and we've already touched on it.
You don't have to worry about me. I've got nowhere to go. So.
Okay. Well, I've just got a friend who brought me some pinto beans and ham, and I told him, you're going to have to wait here, Neil. Neil, I would have been I would have been ready, but my friend had to go to the dentist first. Okay. So
well, we all have excuses.
I'm sorry.
My friend is 95 years old.
Oh, no, I'll be 94 next week.
94 next week, and he still cooks pinto ham and pinto beans.
And my mother was the first one that ever played for you.
Hush up. I'm doing this interview. An old philosopher named Mark Lowry one time said, God puts his greatest gifts in broken pots. He said they spill more water. I said,
Wow.
Mark, is that original? He says, as far as I know, it's original. But
Wow.
but in your song about the bright side of broken, is the glass 50% full? Is the glass 50% empty? Talk to us about the song.
Yeah, I talked about how in the past I've found out that I'm good at lamenting and things that I'm going through personally. I think almost every song that's really important to me has come out of personal situations and things that I've gone through, and this album is definitely one to where it's more of hearing people's stories and seeing people go through things and telling other people's stories. And so this one was a dear friend of mine who's a pastor, had to step down and went through some really hard times. And I remember, didn't want to know any of the facts. The first thing I did when I heard about it is I texted him and said, hey, I'm for you. I'm always for you. And he was like, man, you're the first person to text me. And I was like, I'm just telling you. I said, I don't care to know any of it. I just know that I'm for you. And I said, Paul was very clear about the sin in him was a separate thing. It's not who he is. And so, and when you have that, and I think, Bill, you 100% have this ability to look at a brother or sister in Christ, and no matter what they've done, without batting an eye, and still see them as that same person. Everything changes. And I've been accused of not caring about sin anymore, but the irony is that the second you become like that, you hear about more sin than you could ever imagine, because they trust that you won't see them any differently, and they start coming to you. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Well, in that, I walked through this with him, and somehow, I don't know where I got the idea. I just thought you talk about having ideas. I just thought the phrase, the bright side of broken, that there's, God's in that too. I just love that concept for a title. And it's the idea. I've never heard that quote from Mark, and that's amazing. But I just thought, the second it breaks, the light gets in. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. And it's, I remember going to counseling when I was struggling with some stuff years ago. And when I went in, and the first thing she said to me was, well, the good news is right now, you're the healthiest you've ever been, because you're one step closer. And I'm like, man, that's a glass half full. I'll take that. And so when people ask, how are you doing? And even with my pastor friend, he's like, he goes, I'm honestly the healthiest I've ever been, because I'm finally broken. And he goes, I got a long way to go, but I'm, anyway. And so that's where the idea of that song came from, was just man, it's easy to see God in the high points and the good stuff, but it's like, what if he possibly had a plan and saw this coming and said, hey, I think suffering's a gift, man, because until you taste that, you don't truly understand what grace and forgiveness is.
If that is not true, what you just said, then I guess there's not a place for David in the Bible, right?
No question. Yeah. And the gospel is just pretty good news, not good news. That's what it feels like. But it's like, what, it's the most amazing news ever when all of this starts to click and you're like, oh, that's what that means, is that somehow on my worst possible day, not only is Jesus okay with me, he's still somehow pleased with me, because it's not about what I do. It's about who I am and who he is in me. And it's like, when that settles in, when that light bulb comes on, then we truly become dangerous.
You talked about the moment at the church camp in New Mexico, I think it wasn't it?
Yeah, Glorieta, New Mexico.
We sing the old hymn, Here I Raise My Ebenezer. And as a kid, I used to say, what is an Ebenezer? And then when I started studying the scripture, an Ebenezer is a monument. There are times in all of our lives where we say, God is nowhere around. But your song says, in the moment, I can point back to a time and a place where God did meet me. Now that, for you, probably had to be the beginning. But how many Ebenezers have you had along the way that have been moments for you to say,
Yeah,
I can't,
countless. I mean,
I
yeah,
can't,
I think that's half of my writing is are those Ebenezers, and that's I don't know what the moment came out of. I was sitting around a fireplace that we were done in the studio, and I was with Brown and a couple other guys, and we were just talking kind of like this, just about the things we've gone through and stuff. And I mentioned, I was like, it's funny because like, we had altar calls growing up, and it feels like in some ways they're kind of a thing of the past. I don't see them as much as I used to. And I said, man, it's, regardless how people approach it now, at 12 and a half years old, that was a big deal to me. And it was and that was that moment to where I was like acknowledging, oh yes, I'm on this journey. And I was telling Brown, I was like, what's funny is I'm sure the prayer of salvation was like any of them. I don't remember what I possibly prayed other than like, I'm a sinner, come to my heart or whatever. But I was like, but I'll never forget when we finished and him telling me that, remember this. He goes, this will never let you down. And it was like, and you always be able to come back to this and realize that, I tried to make it where it rhymes, but what he would say is, you have a covenant with a God who you might think and feel like you're breaking that covenant time and time again, but God is not capable of ever breaking this covenant with you. And he goes, and so this is the moment to where, you're stuck together and it's going to feel like you're not, but you just know that, that he's never leaving you. And what's interesting is that, whether you use this or not, the original line, because we were sitting there and I was thinking about friends of mine that may be really passionate about the gospel, but now they're not really living that way. And so the original line that I wanted was, it says at the end of the chorus, and come back to the moment whenever your heart aches. And the line that I wanted originally had was, raise your glass and say, here's to the day I met grace. Because I was envisioning.
That's my favorite line. And I love the toast. Here's to the day that I met grace.
Yeah. Well, originally it said, raise your glass. And that's what I wanted, because I envisioned this, everything that we've been through in life. And it's not, but I knew that my fans would be more consumed with what's in the glass. What are you doing? And so I was like, I'm not kidding. I'm like, you have to think like that. And so I changed it to praise the Lord and say, which I love. But the original was sitting around that fireplace going, man, I see this guy who has lived every part of life, and whether he's got it wrong or right currently, he still has the ability to say, thank God for grace. It was such a beautiful picture, but I felt like I'm going to be explaining that dumb line more than the point of the song. And so the band goes, you chickened out. And I was like, I did. I 100% chickened out.
And we've all done it. We've all done
totally.
it.
Yeah.
I can remember when I heard from some source that, Bart, you had not only a hit on the pop charts, but a hit on the secular charts with not only a gospel song, but a gospel song about heaven, which we have been criticized for years about. That's the trouble with those Christians. They are always living for the pie in the sky by and by, and they're so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good. And when the secular world wanted to embrace something we had done, they embraced the song on heaven. And I went, yes, that's an important part of our theology. The things of earth will dim and lose their value. And when that happened, I said, I don't know that young man, but I'd certainly like to meet him and hug him and say, God bless you for that nerve. It started with that, but it's still part of your theology and anything you write. And a lot of younger writers would say, oh, I want to write songs about living now. And I do too, and you've written your share about living now. But at the same time, you have a very healthy concept about the word eternity and eternal things. And in your song, Almost Home, are you familiar with the quote of C.S. Lewis that says, this is one of my favorite C.S. Lewis quotes, If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world.
That's amazing.
Is
Wow.
that a great
Yeah.
thought?
Yes, I've, since I was 19, my father passed away. I've been consumed with heaven, and, it's funny, like when I first wrote Imagine, people were like, man, what a great, like, like so deep for somebody so young to have this take on it. And I had to be honest, I was like, man, I didn't have it all together. I became consumed because I was hearing so many people say, well, if your dad could choose, he'd be there than here with you. And I was offended by that. Like, what is so great about that he doesn't want to be with me? And so my obsession came out of like, not of like, oh, this is great, of like, somebody needs to show me why he would choose not to be with me. And so it set me on this path to where it went from like, what's so great about it, to where my hope became not only to see my dad, my hope became became the gospel and in what the cross had done. And it fueled something that it became insatiable of just, and I'm not trying to prove it wrong now. I'm obsessed to where I had to back off because I write about it so much. So I there was a homecoming video, in fact, not sure who said it, but I remember someone saying, I've gotten to a point to where I have more invested in heaven than I do here, because I had so many loved ones pass away. And it just, man, it stuck with me for so long. I have a lot of dear friends, but there are, the older you get, it seems like the truer it becomes. And
The scales start tipping.
right.
There's more there than here.
Right. And it's and so it's always going to be there. It's like it is kind of like the, not pie in the sky, but it's like the icing on the cake for me. It's heaven is not what drives me. Heaven is like, are you kidding me? After all of this, that awaits. Like, I live a life with Christ in me, and it's an insatiable desire to know more about him. And then on top of that, this promise of being reunited and being, in this place. It's just, I could go on forever, and it always shows up. It's the ultimate hope for me. When you're wrestling with fear and shame in your past or whatever, it's like, there is a part and there's a time where I'll say better things are coming, but that's not all it is to me. It's like, I'm learning, like you said, you want to write songs about now.
Life.
And that's where Almost Home was kind of trying to wed the two together. It's like, yes, we are almost home, but the second verse, but there's joy in the journey. And gosh, there's been so many gospel songs written about that. And it's like, man, if we're not understanding that eternity began, if heaven if heaven is being present with God, man, that started the day that we came to know him. And so
at 12 years old, heaven started.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. And so it's like, and and I've seen people at our shows years ago doing a church camp, and this lady was in the back row, and she came to meet and greet, and she looked so beat down. And she said, I've been waiting forever, all my life, to get to heaven. And it was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen, because she looked beat down, exhausted. Yeah. And I remember going, no, it's not, there's going to be hard times, but you're missing it. You're missing the fact that we are living with God in us. And it's like, and so that's that whole, like, this is not a, like you said, I've heard the same thing. It's like, there's so much hope in heaven, there's no earthly good. And it's like, that's not it at all. That's dessert for me. That's the thing. It's like, hey, and that's the reason the album ends with, oh, and by the way, as amazing as all of this is, it's not even close. We're not even close to whatever that's going to be. And so, yeah, so it's a little bit of both. It's like, somehow we have the ability to have one foot here and one foot somewhere else. And it's a great place to be.
And Stuart Hamlin said, the things of earth remembered there will only bring a smile.
Yeah. And, I've told you this, Bill, but speaking of, like, the homecoming things were very important to me for a very long time. And the first time I met you, which I believe was backstage the Dove Awards.
At the Dove Awards.
And Yeah, and I had so much to say to you that, and Russ goes, if you can out-talk Bill, there's something wrong with you. And I was like, I wouldn't let you get a word in edgewise, because I was like, man, the first two songs I ever sang at 5 years old was "I Am a Promise" and "I'm a Millionaire."
Yeah.
And then the first time I heard, which, by the way, last Monday, I was at an event, a gathering of a bunch of men, and Larry Gatlin was there, and I had a chance to meet him. And I said, Larry, there was a homecoming video early on where there was only a handful of men in a room.
Yeah.
I remember you were there, and I remember Michael English singing
Yeah.
"Going Home," and it changed my life. Like, to this day, I've told you, I sing "Going Home" at almost because he lived in "Going Home." I sing that line before I sing "Imagine" almost every night, or I did when we were touring. And it wrecked me to hear Michael English sing it a cappella, and to sing that like that. You talk about what C.S. Lewis, when something can't satisfy that thing, just hearing that was like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, but he just wrecked me. And it's like, and yeah, so it's been a part of me forever. And it's a part of me that I love about, like, just good old gospel music of, and Bowed on My Knees and Cried Holy. And all of these songs are like, have been such a huge part of me, because it's like, and that's why I want to be a songwriter. It's like, for someone to paint those pictures, for you guys to paint those pictures. And Gloria, man, the greatest. I mean, there's something about my name. That name is one of my favorite songs ever, but Gloria's monologue during the song might be more important to me than the song itself. And anyway, yeah. So it's a part of me. It's the hope of what's coming. And it's the comfort that gets us through when we lose loved ones, and when things, it's everything to me.
I saw your video on
Oh yeah.
Say I Won't. We don't have a very great theology for loss, although the Bible does. But we want to read David's positive lyrics. We don't want to read, "Oh God, where are you?" and how he was dealing with loss. And sooner or later, we have to face the reality of loss.
Yeah.
At my age, I could go down the list of things that I've lost and I don't do as well. And when I looked at this young man whom I did not know in this video, he had to ask the question that anybody does after loss: what do I have left?
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? And some people can handle it, and some people can't. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, you're right. There's not many verses from Job hanging on people's living rooms these days. Gary, his name is literally Gary Miracle. It's not a joke. And he was our first merch guy 25 years ago. He was my guitar player's roommate. He's been one of our dearest friends forever. And the song "Say I Won't," it kind of has two parts. I started writing that song about probably 6 or 7 months before Gary got sick. And it was out of conversations I was having Gary about grace and learning your identity in Christ, and the things we've been talking about this whole time. Like, he would text me, we'd text back and forth. He's like, hold on. So you're saying on my worst possible day, he's not only okay with me, he's pleased with me. And and all this stuff. And I'm like, yes. And I would tell him books to read and send him and flood him with scripture about who you are in Christ, your identity. And so when I started writing the song, the verses, like the first verse, is more about identity. And one of my favorite lines in the song is, "Yesterday I didn't understand, driving 35 with a rocket inside. I didn't know what I had." And the idea of, like, I feel like a lot of us, it's like, there's a lot of Christians that are walking around that still haven't grasped the concept that same spirit dwells inside of him. I jokingly say it's kind of like looking down and realizing you've had the Batman utility belt on the whole time, but never noticed, like, what, that's here. And it's like, and I think the enemy's biggest fear is us truly understanding who we are in Christ. And so that's where it started. And then Gary got really sick and had sepsis, and they thought he wasn't going to make it, had on life support for a really long time. And they even said, if we can save him, he's going to lose possibly a few of his limbs, just because of how this machine works, where it pulls the blood into the core of his body to keep him alive. And so anyway, so we went from thinking he was going to die, and he made it through, and then the pandemic hit, so we had to watch from a distance. And sure enough, they ended up having to take his arms and his legs, and we were staying in touch with as much as we could, and talking to his wife a lot. And his attitude was, he definitely had his dark days, don't get me wrong, and still does, but his attitude was so amazing, of just like, there's like, he was ready to hang it up. He was ready to go. And he would even say before, like, this is not the way that I want to live. I don't want to just be a burden to my wife and kids. But then, he realized coming out of that, okay, there's purpose to this. I may not know exactly what it is, but there's purpose. And you talk about everything about your identity in Christ being put into practice when you're like, what's the point of me being here? And he was a different man. Like, and we were having a conversation, and I was like, how are you doing? He goes, man, there are people that have asked me to like speak and stuff. And he's a godly man. He goes, I'm not emotionally there yet. And he said, but we do hope that there's a reason behind this, to where some people could feel like they can overcome whatever they're going through if they one day hear a story. And so I told Gary, I was like, man, I said, we would like to tell your story if that's possible. And I played him the song. The song went from identity to like a Rocky moment, like overcomer by the end, where it's the bridge is like, I can do all things through Christ, or, keep saying that I won't, and I'll prove you wrong. And it took a turn, and it was all because of Gary. And I loved how it turned out. And like we were just talking about, I've written a lot of songs, a lot of funeral songs, if you will, and the songs about heaven. And this one is all about living. It's 100% about taking advantage of every moment that you have, and understanding that, oh yes, this is what it means to have Christ in me. It's like, I can't be stopped. And that's what I mean by when that sets in, you become dangerous. And Gary right now is a very dangerous person, because he gets it, and he understands who he is. He has his moments and his low points, like all of us, and especially, but he gets it. And he's like, he knows that he's here for a reason, and he's charging hell with a water pistol right now.
Joy in the journey. And sometimes that journey takes us through some very, very difficult times.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing, Bart, about you and MercyMe has been this, I think. It's about more than the music. It's about real human beings with real lives. I'll never forget when they wanted the vocal band to sing, because it's the 50th anniversary of the Devil Wars. They wanted us to sing three of our big songs. And I said, on the last song, I would like to have as many of the younger guys who have connections with us. And my connection was only through an earlier Devil Award where I met you backstage. So I said, call Bart and some others to come out on Because He Lives to sing on that chorus. You didn't bat an eye. Yeah, I want to be out there with Bill. You didn't care whether Bill was an old man or whether I was hip or cool or anything. Man, you just wanted to be part of it. You did not have to be introduced. And so for you some of you older people who might be saying, who's that guy with that crazy red hat on? This is one of the coolest, most real young artists in our field. And to me, you're young. Everybody's young to me. And that Gloria and I love very, very much. It's been a joy to talk with you today. We inhaled on the way in, and now we're going to exhale. And give me the lyric again. I'm inhaling and I'm exhaling. It's always darkest just before light. Inhale, exhale. Where there's broken
hope is not far behind.
Rest your head, child. It's going to be all right.
Yep. And that was the idea. Breathe all this in and then just let it out.
Bless you, my friend.
All right, man. Take care. So, you're the king of jokes.
Okay.
Like, I hear it's amazing. And so we've got an ongoing bit with my kids about they just hate my dumb dad jokes.
Yeah, okay.
And so I'll end with this. This is the one that I'm giving to him later, was that, and the Lord said, come forth and I'll give you eternal life. Sadly, I came in fifth and got a toaster.